brain.
I am excited, my friend. I got to tell everyone something. I was loving the interview with Baldy, and I had to tell you something about, I want to say, Anthony, it was about maybe 3 years ago. I had a bad back at the time. I was in physical therapy, and the guy who was doing my physical therapy, he started talking about Wilt Chamberlain, okay? And he started going, he goes, Brad, he goes, I went on to YouTube, and he goes, I just started looking at all this Wilt Chamberlain stuff. Let me tell you something. I swear to God, Anthony, hand on the Bible, for all your listeners, I did it. I was on YouTube looking at Wilt Chamberlain stuff for 9 freaking hours. And let me tell you something, Anthony, there is not, what Baldy said does not surprise me. There is not even a speck of doubt in my mind. He's the best athlete in the history of the world, in my opinion. Seeing all the stuff I saw on YouTube, what this guy was like, more or less the fastest athlete, the strongest athlete, the most versatile athlete. Anthony, I learned so much by just messing around, looking at the stuff on him. I got to tell you, everyone watching, I encourage you. You'll love it. Just look at what this guy has done in his life and the stuff he did. And I'm a guy, as you said, I follow this stuff as close as you can. I learned a ton of stuff about Wilt Chamberlain, which I really didn't know. And I really.
Right, because he predates us. And,
yes.
But you're right. Like, he was an incredible volleyball player, yes. Right?
Track athlete, Anthony. He ran like a 10-something 100 at 7'2".
Yeah, ridiculous. Like, because you know what it is? It's athletic movement. Then you scale him out at 7'2" and 300 and whatever pounds. So when you scale that and keep the same athleticism, I mean, you're right. He could be the greatest athlete in the history of the world.
My favorite thing ever, Anthony, there was an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about how when they did Conan, the movie Conan, it was him, Andre, and it was like he was like a thing with him, Andre the Giant, and Wilt Chamberlain, and they were talking about with Arnold Schwarzenegger, like who's the strongest or whatever. He goes, it was not a comparison. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was like, I think he's to say Andre the Giant, quite honestly, or him.
Right?
He's like, Wilt Chamberlain made me and Andre look like weaklings. This is
Andre the Giant?
Andre the Giant, who was like the most
mythical
figure ever, in my opinion. But they said Wilt Chamberlain made them look like nothing. Literally could like pick them up in the air. Like, again, the Wilt Chamberlain stuff, again, I could go on a topic and talk about Anthony for 10 hours. I've never been so enthralled as to watching. I encourage you to do it. I swear, watch some of the stuff on Wilt. You'll just be like, as much as you think you know, as much as you're like, this guy's this, and this, I get it. You're going to be like, your level's going to go up 10x.
Well, you know, it's funny. I did that because I covered Wilt's funeral. So when I was, it was interesting. I was in LA for like a month when I was in the newspapers. And in the same month, I did a bunch of stories. One was Wilt's funeral. And so like I dove deep into his life and his career to write, his obituary, to write all about the funeral, all the dignitaries that attended. And it was interesting because that same trip, I spent a couple days with Kobe. And so I'll never forget, it was at practice, and he was going to the airport, and he was leaving his car at the airport. And I said, listen, do you mind if I ride with you? Because we weren't done the interview, and I just wanted more like just to hang out, whatever. And what you're always looking for, as a writer, you're always looking for more time when you're doing a profile. And this is before his ascent. It's like, it was 99 maybe. And he was like, yeah, come. So we hung out and we drove the airport through LA traffic, and then I wound up taking a cab back to the hotel from the airport. And he was so interesting. And it was fascinating to have the experience of, I look back on it now, of getting lost in Wilt's life and then going to Kobe, and who was ascending, right?
Yeah. You've done, Anthony, you're lucky. You've done some amazing stuff in your life that a lot of us would dream of doing, and you've done it. So seriously, kudos to you that you had to be able to have those accomplishments, do those really neat things. I mean, look, I'm a 53-year-old man. I would love to have been able in the car talk to Kobe like that. I admit it. Like, I'd be like, oh shoot, man, sign me up.
Well, it's one of the things. Really cool. We're going to get into the betting stuff and your picks. We'll go through the whole thing. But what I love, when you and I get together, we talk more about sports
Yeah, I love it.
than betting. Like the betting piece is just a byproduct.
100%.
Right? Like you do what you do and you're a professional and you're on a run that's historic, and we'll tell people about it in a minute. But in reality, you just love sports. Like that's the biggest thing. And that's why you and I connect, because
100%.
it's really a love of sports.
100%. Look, and again, it's like in the movie Rounders, they go, you can't really choose your destiny chooses you. My destiny is sports. I just love it. I love it. I immerse myself in it. I watch it 24/7. Everything. I can't help it. That's what I love. So that's what I do. And I'm sure you're the exact same way. And that's what you do. And that's why you've had the great career you've had, is because of you can't fake that, right? Like,
right.
Either, there gets to be a point where we catch up to you, so to speak. And either, you have that itch, that love, and me and you have it for sure.
So let's talk about let's go sport by sport. Let's start with the NBA, because you are a Sixer man, and last night was a big deal, man. They can now catch Indiana. They're only a game behind the Pacers. They're a half game behind Miami. And, if you can get to the 6th seed and watching Embiid, right, the whole thing changes. So there's a lot of optimism around the Sixers.
It's interesting, Anthony. If anyone didn't think, and again, like he got a little bit of, I think, unfair criticism for winning the MVP, right? At least a little bit, in my opinion. But maybe because Jokic won the championship, whatnot. But I will tell you this: I don't know if I've ever seen that. This would be a good, the thing to do, maybe to see. As a team that never lost a player, I guess that's the Spurs. The one year they lost David Robinson, going back 30 years, but I don't think I've ever seen a bigger difference that I can think of since then, where a team lost a star player and you saw the difference. What are they, 26-7 with them, or whatever it is?
Yeah, they got off to that incredible, and they were playing like really dominant ball,
Anthony,
good ball.
It shows you the difference again. And I got to tell you something. And again, I'm not a hater. That's not who I am. I'm not a guy who. I just, I know I stay in my lane.
We're the same way in that sense.
But Doc Rivers has had I have to acknowledge, he's had a solid coaching career. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you this: the difference with having Nick Nurse and him is like seeing a guy come back from The Biggest Loser losing 80 pounds. I mean, it's stark. And the Sixers never would have been 26-7. I'm giving you, like, this is not an opinion. This is that, and you don't watch the games. They never would have been 26-7 with Doc Rivers. And this team was playing right there with Boston. Again, Anthony, because you have so many good connections. I mean, do you think Joel is back to being Joel, or do you think it's going to need like a month? And they don't have a month really, but that to me is the key, because I do think they're in my opinion, the clear second best team in the East, if he's right. But getting to that 7th seed, Anthony, to me is worth. I can't even stress the value I put in that, because if they're going to play the 8-1 against Boston, not to say they can't do it, Anthony, but let's just be honest. Again, I call it the way it is. They're going to be a hefty underdog. At least you play someone else, even if it's Milwaukee. I think they'd smoke Milwaukee. But whoever they would play, it gives maybe you'll get lucky. Boston gets an injury, or they get upset, and it gives Embiid more time just to get back to feel comfortable. But that's how at least I see it. But I think avoiding that 8 matchup, Anthony, the 1-8, I think that's everything.
Yeah, I agree. I'm completely with you. I mean, if you look at it, and look, just to answer your question, I think it's going to take some time for Embiid to be completely himself. Like, you can look at his rebounding totals, right? And you're a guy that plays props and stuff like this. And his rebound numbers are down the first 2 games. And I'll tell you exactly why. He's gassed, right? Like, even though he's in good shape, it's so hard to get into basketball shape. And this is what he's going to work himself into. So when you're extending energy, you're not going to extend as much energy rebounding unless the ball's in your vicinity, then he'll snatch it. Otherwise, that'll give him a bit of a rest to kind of maximize his energy, which is why his rebound totals are down.
Yep, that makes total sense, buddy. I agree everything you said.
Let's look at our NBA weekend. It's a back-to-back. You got Wemby coming up. We have the Grizzlies, and you got Wemby. Wemby's ridiculous. I mean, You want to talk about a blast to watch. So Sixers play Saturday and Sunday. You got any picks for either tonight's card or over the weekend involving the Sixers?
I'll give you. Yeah, well, not involving the Sixers, but I will say this: I do think they have a really good chance to winning out. But look, I'm going to give you a couple props tonight, Anthony, for all your listeners. And look, again, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it a little bit of a shameless plug because I think I deserve it, Anthony. My record this year with these props, I'm up about 200 units betting 1 unit per game. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm up 200 units betting 1 unit per game. I don't know.
Dude, you could be the prop goat.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't. That to me is the equivalent. And of Wilt Chamberlain when he averaged 50 points a game. I don't understand. People understand. I'll tell you what. You try to win 200 units, factoring in the juice, betting 1 unit per game. I'll give you the rest of your life to do it. You're not going to come close.
Wow.
But that's what I'm doing. Again, bradsbestbets.com. I think I have the best winning percentage in the world. I'll go that far. And it's been that good. But I'm going to give you some.
bradsbestbets.com is your site.
Yep, bradsbestbets.com, and I'm Brad's Best Bets on Twitter. But Anthony is my man. One of my favorite people in the universe is this man who I'm talking to right now. And I'm going to be on here in this show giving out free picks as well. And you can win on those. But if you want to win on more than just the free picks, you can sign me up. But anyway, here, a couple picks, Anthony, I like for tonight that I think are just off. I'm going to start with Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole, they made his over-under tonight 23.5 points. I think it's too high. He's averaging a lot less than that, but he's picked it up recently. But he's 11-4 to the under his last 15. I think 23.5 is about 2 points too high. I bet Jordan Poole under 23.5 points. I also bet Jordan Poole under 7.5 assists. He's averaging, even during the stretch, 5.5 assists when he's been, quote-unquote, playing better. 7.5 too high of a number. Colin Sexton, Utah Jazz, been averaging around 22 points a game, Anthony. His last 20 games, he's 16-4 to under 24.5. The difference between 22.5 and 24.5, Anthony, is those extra 2 points when he lands on 23 or 24 of Blake Feinberg. You told me that, and that is our edge there. And then in baseball, Anthony, you said something, and let me tell you something. I couldn't agree with you more. Patrick Corbin.
Gas can.
And Anthony, it's interesting. Patrick Corbin, to give up 5.5 hits, I love. It is, listen to this stat, Anthony. Last 2 years, 42-20, giving up 6 hits or more. 42 and 20.
God.
And 21-11 last year was very consistent both years. And the Phillies have a good lineup.
Yes.
I mean, Anthony, this is one where, again, I think it should be closer to 7 hits. They're not going to ever give a tie in a sports book, but at least 6.5. So, again, when he lands on 6, you'll be like, oh, Brad and Anthony said it on that show. I love Patrick Corbin over 5.5 hits, Anthony. And I'm going to give you a picture that some of you listeners may not know, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of both. I'm going fading him on one, take me another. But this guy has very good stuff. His name is Jones, Jacob Jones of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, it's interesting. 5.5 strikeouts. His strikeout whiff rate, Anthony, his miss per bat, like where they swing and miss, is 19%, which is the same level of Strider and DeGrom. Okay?
Yes.
Over 5
his stuff is absurd.
Yeah,
like, I love those young kids. So I follow all that stuff. Like, I know you do because you're a fantasy baseball man. like his stuff is silly. It's sick, his stuff.
Well, yeah, and 5.5 strikeouts, you can get juice on the Parks site right now, and I think it was plus 110, Anthony. And again, Baltimore's a tough line. I'm going to get to the other bet in a second, but I think he pitches, even if he only goes 4 innings, I think he gets 6 or 7 strikeouts. And I think you're going to see Jones going forward, his strikeout totals being 6.5 and 7.5. I think 5.5. This may be the last time we get a chance to get that. But conversely, because it is a tough matchup, he is a young guy, I do like Baltimore to score over 2.5 runs against him, even though, again, I think this bet we can win both games where he gives up 3 or 4 runs and has 7 or 8 strikeouts. And I'll be surprised if I lose both, because if he doesn't give up any runs and I lose, and by the way, both we're getting juice, so I'm not laying any odds. Then he's going to get to 6 strikeouts, in my opinion, and I'll kiss my sister. It'll be a tie, no big deal, right? But I think there's a real chance we go 2-0. But again, my favorite one, Anthony, is probably the Patrick Corbin bet, which you talked about, right before I got on air.
Let's talk a little Final Four.
Yeah.
Let's start with the women's. Like, the women's game has been incredible. Have you been playing any of the? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I did bet Purdue against LSU, but it's interesting, Anthony. If I was Parks, okay, and I'm running this sports book, I would put a Caitlin Clark tax on every because right now it's the storyline. Everyone wants to bet Caitlin
Yeah.
Clark. Everyone wants to bet
Yeah.
on Iowa. Who wants to fade that? No one. So I think right now they're laying 2.5, Anthony, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
If I was running the sports book, if it was Brad Anthony's sports book, like that 2.5 is now going to be 3.5 because we know who you're taking, and it's hard to fade Caitlin Clark right now, and the way that team is playing. She's playing. Anthony, I got to ask you a question. The 3-on-3 thing, which she's offered the $5 million. You're her agent. You say yes or no?
Yes.
So do I. I agree.
Yes.
$5 million, dude. I mean,
Yes.
that's life-changing money. And again, I know she's going to have her own stuff because of who she is and what she's accomplished. But $5 million. And by the way, if somehow she just does okay,
Right.
what she could do for the women's everything. If somehow she could, I know it's a big ask, and I athletically, I mean, it's going to be hard. But I mean, I'll be rooting for her.
I would love to see it, and everybody in the free world would root for her.
Everyone would watch it. It would be must-see TV. Who wouldn't watch?
Yes.
So I mean, I guess the downside would be is if she just can't handle the athleticism and the physicality of it, and she looks quote unquote overmatched. But again, I don't think anyone would really hold it against her. They'd be like, okay, yeah, you couldn't go against the man. That's not anything bad. And I would just give her credit for trying, truthfully. But look, that game, Anthony, the only way I can look is the Iowa side laying the 2.5, because I do think they're going to get there. Now, again, will they beat Dawn Staley and company South Carolina? I'm going to say probably not. I think that's where the run will end, kind of like what happened against LSU last year. But I am buying the narrative that Caitlin Clark gets to, because remember, I don't know if you know, Anthony, UConn wouldn't give her a scholarship. She wanted to play there.
Oh, no, I know the whole story.
She erased what happened with Angel Reese in the last game. Now I think she'll get Gino here, and then after that, I think it's probably going to end. But I'll be rooting for her.
Yeah, I'm with you. How about in the men's? We look at the Final Four. I mean, that UConn 30-0 run was one of I've never seen that.
Epic. Yeah, epic. You know what I'm saying? And they have seemed like they are like that Florida team, right? That won the second of two, right? Like when they won with when they had Joakim Noah and Al Horford.
Yes,
and,
that's a great comp.
Yeah, and who was the guy? They had the guy Corey Brewer, and they had the guy who could shoot. Lee, what was his? Oh my God, it's going to annoy me. But anyway, that was a really, really good Florida team. This team seems defensively so good. Now, here's what I'll say about Alabama. Alabama, Anthony, is a variance team. Okay, and what I mean by that is they play fast. They believe of either we want a lab or a three. Now, if they're hitting their threes, like you've seen it, like what happened with the kid from Oakland against Kentucky. I didn't even think Kentucky played bad defense, especially in the second half.
They actually did, and they're a bad defensive team, but they didn't play.
They didn't. The guy was hitting shots. You'd be like, what the heck's going on? It was like, and I would say that what I'm most confident in this game, I would probably like the team total of UConn over 86.5. Alabama is horrible defensively. Horrible. Yeah. And I think UConn will get theirs. Now, could Alabama get theirs just because the way they play? Possibly. But I think UConn is going to score some more. That would be my favorite way in that game. And I do think there's a chance, and the reason I'm not going to lay the 11.5, I do think there's a chance you could see a 192 game where Alabama just scores and shoots and plays such a fast pace. And then the other game, Anthony, look, I have my big all-in bet before the year, and I took a gamble. I took a big gamble. I bet on Purdue 40-1 that Zach Edey was going to come back. I knew that line at 40-1 would crater if he came back. I was Googling this. You would have thought I was Zach Edey's dad. I was looking at this every day. Zach Edey, trying to glean of what the news was going to be. And everything I read, I was like, I think he's going to stay. I gambled. I got lucky. He is. I think they should beat NC State. NC State's been actually the best team for me in the tournament. I've won a fortune on them betting live. And again, I give them credit what they've done. I think their run ends here. The line's 8.5. It's interesting, Anthony. Here's what I'll say to you. Duke was laying 7 against NC State. Purdue was 5 points better, 5 to 5.5 points better than Duke. So I think you're getting a little bit of, if you like Purdue, a little bit of a break in that. Again, I think that this line should have been a little bit higher. I'm not anxious personally to lay 8.5 points, but I do think we're going to get Purdue against UConn, and I think we'll see that line, Anthony. My opinion is it'll settle at 6.5 area.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And here's the thing, like hammer UConn in that game because, listen, for your sake, you have Purdue to win it all. Is that it?
Yeah, UConn's going to probably win. But I've been betting.
But at least you can hedge. Like the great for you is like you could make a lot of money because.
I'm going to do very well.
Because you'll be able to hedge it. That matchup. I think that's the only team. Like Edey is such a dominant force, but he gets negated a little bit against UConn.
A lot of it, not a little bit, Anthony, because it's just the one time, the only team you can say, you know what, we actually have a guy that he's supposed to be, Anthony, when I read Klingen's supposed to be at the top 3 NBA pick. But by the way, this could be the worst NBA draft they've seen in NBA history. Just an aside.
Oh, really? The worst? Wow, that's wild.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I'll tell you what, when you're off the air, go look at the names they're talking about. Klingen was like the only guy I really knew of, honestly. And I follow this, and there was some international young guys that weren't even supposed to be that great. It's supposed to be a weak draft, but Klingen's the one guy that could actually theoretically play with Edey and actually bother him, right? This will be, in my opinion, a little bit of a litmus test for Edey and how he'll do in the NBA, because I think Donovan can actually really guard. He's an incredible defensive player, and we'll see, how Edey will do against guys his size more in the NBA, because he hasn't had to face it once in college, truthfully.
Yeah, that's why. It's weird. If you saw my face, it felt like we had an earthquake here.
Oh,
the building shook.
Oh, wow!
And it's still kind of shaking. Wow. This is wild. We should find out. This is like bizarre. Yeah. Like it's wild. I know, but I'm looking at Julia, our producer, and her her face. It's
right?
it's wild. Yeah.
Wow. Is it still shaking?
Like you felt the shake.
Wow.
Of it. Dude, I don't know. That was weird. I know. We're all at the top floor, so it's a long way down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's why we started the show talking about the Wilt Chamberlain. I told you I covered that funeral.
Yeah, of course.
I was in an earthquake during the night of the funeral. LA had an earthquake, and I was in the earthquake. I remember waking up like at 4:00 in the morning. It woke me up. I look outside the drapes, and it's like we were like perpendicular to the ground. It was like they're made to. We were in a tower. The Marriott was in a tower, and I'm looking, and I'm like at a 45-degree angle, and I was like, "What? What?" And then I hear the sirens. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. Oh my God! I have friends of mine going. The whole house was shaking. I don't know what the bleep that was.
Wow! So it must have been an earthquake. Oh my God!
It must have been an earthquake. You're in Florida.
I'm in Florida. Yeah, I'm in Florida, my friend. But and Anthony, look, I am actually being beckoned. My beautiful fiance just had a procedure done. I have to help her with something, so I'm not trying to cut this short. But
you do what you got to do. Hey, listen, great stuff at Brad's Bets.
Brad's Best Bets. Brad's Best Bets.
Brad's Best Bets on Twitter and Brad'sBestBets.com.
Yes, sir, man. And I cannot wait to be on with you, man. I'm so excited.
Dude, we could go all day. You're the best.
I love you guys. All right, Anthony.
Have a great weekend.
See you next week. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
pal.
Good luck, everyone.